Hey everybody, I am so excited to jump in and wrap up this lesson on Joseph. You can find his story in the Bible, Genesis 37 through chapter 50. And if you haven't watched the first video, I'd really encourage you to just pause this video really quick and hop on over and watch the video, the first video of Joseph. That way you can hop in right where we are getting ready to take off from today. Also, if you have not subscribed and hit the bell to get notified when we upload videos on YouTube, I want to encourage you to go ahead and do that. And if you have a Facebook profile and you're watching this on Facebook, please, if you haven't yet, like and follow our page as well. We put videos out regularly on YouTube. We also put a lot of great content and events and things like that on our Facebook page, and we don't want you to miss out on anything that we're doing. We would love for you to join us along this mission and this journey that God has us on. So anyway, so let's jump on in. We left off with Joseph actually having Pharaoh appoint him authority all over Egypt for the whole country. The only other person that had higher authority than Joseph was the Pharaoh himself. And so I want to continue on with that, but the one thing that I really want to highlight, which is really important about kind of where we're going today, is God gave Joseph dreams when he was young. It says he was sold into slavery at 17, but God had given him specific dreams, and he had revealed to Joseph the plans that God had for him. And so that's part of why Joseph's brothers, and I said that in the last video, Joseph's brothers hated him and did not have anything nice to say about him, because their father Jacob that was his favorite son. But really kind of what made everything come to a head was Joseph's dream. And I wanted to talk a little bit in detail about that, because we did mention it. I did mention it in the last video, but I actually want to share the detail. And some of you guys might be very familiar with it, others may not. And so I just kind of want to talk a little bit about that. God gave Joseph dreams of him being an authority over people and of people kneeling before Joseph. His brothers did not like the idea of their baby brother having authority over them, let alone the idea of kneeling to Joseph. And so I want to share that at the front end, because we're going to go into just like how the Lord ordered the steps. And even because we talked about it in the first video, what happened to Joseph, the way he was treated, the way he was betrayed, the plans to kill him, the being sold into slavery, the lies that were spoken over about him, the way he was forgotten was completely undeserved. Joseph did not deserve to be treated that way. But it's because of the brokenness of our world. It's because of the free will that God has given us as human beings that came against Joseph. And so, but we also saw, like I talked about the first video, just the favor of the Lord and how God was with him through it all. And so we are now at a place, and the reason why I brought up and kind of talked the specifics of the dream that God gave him and the dream that God had for Joseph is we now see that dream has come true. He is now placed in authority. And so the thing that I really want to talk about with that too is that God knew ahead of time. God is here right now today with me, but he was there with Joseph. He is in tomorrow and the days to come and the months to come and the years to come. He knows what my future holds, just like he knows what your future holds. He knows what today holds, and he knows what tomorrow holds for you and for me. And so in this, the Lord knew that a famine was going to come, and he appointed, he anointed, and he called Joseph to be the one to step in and put a plan in place to save the people in Egypt. And it actually, as we read in the story, it goes out further. So, Pharaoh's dream, God gave Joseph the gift to interpret that dream, and it starts to come true. So before we actually jump into that, I also want to say, as I was reading, something that really jumped out to me as I was reading Joseph's story, and I've read it before, and I think that's what's so beautiful too about God's word is you can read something and it'll, like, the Holy Spirit will illuminate something to you in one season of life, and then you can read it again and it's something else. And so the thing that really stood out to me too was Joseph, in the time that he was appointed authority over Egypt, he did get married and he had 2 sons. And in the names of his sons, I'm looking for that really quick. Sorry, I made my little notes. There it is. Okay. In the names of his sons, we actually see his sorrow and his grief and the loss of his family and the way he had been treated. And so I'm gonna probably butcher these names. So if you know actually how to pronounce these names and you're watching, I would love for somebody to teach me on this. Manasseh, and it means that God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family. That's the name of his first son, is Manasseh. And it says again, God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family. And then his second son was Ephraim, and his name meant God has made me fruitful in this land of my grief. And so I wanted to really highlight that because the Lord really highlighted it to me, which was, you know, these things happened to Joseph and they were undeserved. He didn't do anything to deserve the treatment that he received by many people. And yet the Lord gave him favor, and you see the favor of the Lord over and over again. But even in that, Joseph shared his grief, and he did feel sorrow and he did feel sadness. And so the thing that I really want to encourage you, whether you are in that season of grief and just you're broken and you're lost and you're hurt, it's okay to have hope, but also have sorrow. It's okay to have that grief. God is weeping with you. He is a just God and he is a loving God, but the things of this world that happen to us were never a part of his plan. And it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. What's important is that you take that to the Lord and allow him to sit with you and hold you and love you and care for your heart and show you the way out and keep your eyes on him. So I wanted to just kind of highlight that as well. So in that 7 years of abundance, Joseph did get married. Joseph had children. And in that 7 years, Joseph had the plan of harvesting this grain and putting some of it in a hold so that when the famine happened, they would have the food. And so there was this storehouse of food that was brought and kept. And so 7 years of abundance and then 7 years of famine. And so again, God gave Joseph a gift, and Joseph gave God all the glory and interpreted the dream correctly. So the dream has come true, and the famine actually spreads out farther than Egypt, and it starts to hit the outlying lands to the places where Joseph's brothers and father, his whole family, is at. And so Joseph's brothers hear about the storehouses in Egypt, and they go to Jacob, their father, and say, we got to go. Like, that's where the food is. So they all go and they leave Benjamin there. Benjamin is Joseph's brother. Like, he's Rachel's son. Joseph and Benjamin are the only sons that came from Rachel. So his half-brothers go and they leave Benjamin there, and they come into Egypt, and Joseph recognizes them immediately, but they don't recognize Joseph, and they kneel before Joseph. So we see the Lord's dream for Joseph come true. Joseph is put in authority, and his brothers come in and they kneel before Joseph. And so I'm not going to go into the great details because there's a lot of amazing details in this story, but I'd really like to kind of get to the point of where the Lord really led me. And so I would really encourage you, get in the Word. It's chapters 37 through 50 in Genesis is where you'll find Joseph's story, and you can hear all of the ways that Joseph still was cautious with his brothers, but also gave love and mercy. So we get to a place where Joseph finally shows his brothers that who he is, like, hey, I'm your brother. And what we see is his brothers' grief and just sorrow for what they did, and also fear, because Joseph had every right to be like, get out of here, but he didn't. The verse that stood out to me, and it was actually a verse God gave me years ago that really is kind of like a foundational verse to me, and it was Genesis 50, and it says, your plans, I'm paraphrasing again, look it up in the word, but your plans were meant to harm me, but God, his plans were for good and to save the lives of many. And so that's kind of my highlight verse for this whole lesson, is that we are in a broken, fallen world. I made a note here that just says the world, so man, the world, the enemy of our souls, had tried really hard to discard and destroy and throw away Joseph and Joseph's dreams, but more importantly, God's dreams and plans for him. The world tried to take that away from Joseph, but God would never allow that. And so that's kind of the big takeaway, is that God has a plan for each one of us. And we are in a broken, fallen, evil, ugly world. And the enemy wants to find places where he can discourage us, where he can destroy us. That's his mission. But we're on a mission for good. And God has good plans for us. And they're plans for a future and to prosper us and not to harm us. And so instead of focusing like on the circumstances that we're around, look for God. I asked the question in the first video, which was, do you feel like, have you been unloved, hated, betrayed, had things plotted against you, had things falsely accused? Do you feel stuck? We've all felt that way. I've experienced it time and time and time again. But every single time, if I turn my eyes from the circumstance, I know God is in it. I know He's with me. He's with me. And while it was not His original plan to let these specific things happen to me, He still used it for good and His glory. It's because of what happened to Rochelle that she can touch the hearts of so many women. It's because of the things that I've experienced. I can say, I know. And so in that, we are able to reach each other and love each other and not feel so alone. But God is with us and He is for us. You are chosen, just like Joseph was. He has plans for you. He has dreams for you. And as long as we continue to take one step and continue to follow Him, we will see those dreams come true. He will not let anything slip through His fingers without good coming from it. And so if it's not good, I tell my kids this a lot, if it's not good, God's not finished yet. So I just want to skim through really quick, because I kind of went off script, sorry. I'm going to go back and just say, because of where you are or where you've been, because of what you're experiencing or you have experienced, you have a unique story that can impact others and help others out of prison, out of the pit, out of being stuck, out of feeling hated or unloved or unwanted. You have a way of helping people understand. And so I think it's really important to think through like how Joseph could have 100% retaliated against his brothers, and yet he gave mercy and grace to them and forgiveness. and saw that through everything that happened, while it was not deserved, God used it for good, and it got Joseph to a place where he was able to have grace and mercy and love and forgiveness for so many people, and it saved the lives of many. And so that's where I really want to leave it. While this world wants to still kill and destroy, anything that God has put in place, he is faithful to finish, and he loves you more than anything, and he is with you. So if you're feeling alone right now, I just pray that you just take some time and just sit and ask the Lord just to be with, like, to reveal himself to you. If you have questions or you need help or you need prayer, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to pray with you. I'd love to grab coffee with you if you're local. But I just want to encourage you with that while the world has evil plans, God has good plans for you. And whatever you've been through, just use it to help and love others, and to give God all the glory. All right, we love you. God bless you. Again, reach out if you need anything, prayer, to talk, coffee. I love coffee. So talk to you soon. God bless.